So yes, I'm speaking about the rise of the ethical consumer and the growth in the green economy. So I just tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm the chairman of the Giftware Association, but I also co-founded Blue Eyed Sun. We started doing greeting cards. We still do greeting cards, but we started distributing bamboo cups last year. They're reusable coffee cups made from bamboo fiber. And we've been doing that since about last April. And what I found through the process of doing the bamboo cups is that there was a huge learning curve with the green issues and getting aware of ethical issues and so on. And and I started doing a lot of research on it and then studying it. And I did a talk at Autumn Fair, which on a similar topic. It's the talk for that is up on my SlideShare, which is slideshare.net/Jeremy Corner, and the slides from this will also be on my SlideShare. Plus, they'll be on my blog, which is at blueeyedsun.co.uk if you miss anything and you want to go through it afterwards. So this is just wanted to start. So we are actually we are the second most polluting industry in the world, and it's a terrible thing to say, but it's true, and we have to do something about it. And there's a real surge of interest from consumers in changing the way we work with regards to how we produce stuff and how we sell stuff and what that stuff is made from. We're second only to the petrol industry to fuel. This is just to give you an idea. How many of you guys have seen this video online, Story of Stuff? No one? So do go check it out. The talk actually hyperlinks through to the videos, but Story of Stuff project, definitely worth checking out. They have a fantastic video. Essentially, this is a woman who studied consumer goods for years, and she wanted to understand the sort of chain from sort of natural resources through to manufacturing, through to distribution, into retail, and to the consumer. And the statistics that she found were horrific once she looked at them. This is the standout one for me was like only 1% of the materials that are used to produce our consumer goods are still in use 6 months after their sale. So another one that she cites as well is when you put out a garbage can or trash can in America on the sidewalk, there will have been 70 trash cans worth of trash used to produce that one can. So the volume of resource and kind of energy and all the rest of it to create all the stuff that we sell here has a huge impact on the planet, and it's something that we need to be mindful of going forward because consumers are changing. This is just one other guy. He did this in the States. He carried around all of the excess rubbish that he collected from the products that he used during a single month. That's cereal boxes from eating food, or crisp packets, or anything he ate, or he consumed a magazine if he read a magazine. And it ended up by the end of 1 month that he was carrying 38 kilos worth of rubbish. We're not America. We don't consume in quite the same way that they do, but we do still consume. And the impact of this on the environment is massive, especially if we're not recycling. One of the biggest things, how many of you guys saw this documentary last year, Blue Planet 2? Yeah. So, how many of you saw a clip of it on the internet if you didn't see the whole documentary? I mean, there were loads of footage and loads of photos going around of lots of plastic in the sea, turtles kind of getting inside of beer rings, a plastic beer ring packaging, and then not actually growing properly, so their shells were getting distorted by the plastic. They say now that that pretty much no matter what fish you buy in the supermarkets in the UK, they've all got plastic in them in some form or another. 94% of Americans have been tested as having plastic in their systems. And the reason plastic's bad is because it can cause cancer-related illnesses, ADHD, all sorts of issues, even genital deformities, believe it or not. So it's definitely something that we don't want to have in our systems. We're seeing a lot of this type of image. How many of you guys use your social media, like Facebook, Instagram, anything like that? Quite a few of you, good. And so, these are the types. So this photo here has been shared like 150,000 times on Instagram. And so people are really engaging in this subject matter. There's been a huge backlash against plastic, and we're seeing more and more of that every day that goes by. These are just some of the kind of key statistics. So 6 billion plastic bottles go into the ground in the UK every year. There's about 500 billion plastic bottles produced globally, and those bottles, it's just not sustainable going forward. Less than a third of them are recycled as well, which is hugely problematic because it means they're basically going in the ground and then they're taking hundreds of years to break down. We have a similar issue with coffee cups. 2.5 billion plastic-lined coffee cups going into the ground in the UK and Ireland alone every year. Styrofoam, I don't know if you're familiar with styrofoam, but styrofoam pretty much never breaks down. So plastic does break down eventually, but even when it breaks down into small pieces that can get ingested by us or animals that we might eat. And then the big issue primarily that I see is the food packaging. So whilst many of us in the show might have products that are wrapped in plastic, those products, we're not buying them every single day and using single use, whereas the food often we are buying. So, we'll buy our tomatoes, they'll come wrapped in plastic packaging like this, and the volume is getting on for 800, it's actually getting on to closer to 825,000 tons per annum, and again, only a third of it's being recycled. So, and now, a third of consumers are becoming very concerned about the origins of the products, partly off the back of Blue Planet, partly off the back of all the social media activity that's going on, and there's the spread of information that we can now get. We can find out a lot more about where our products are coming from more quickly. That's statistics broadly across the general public, but the section of the public that's most interesting, and I'm going to talk about them in a bit more detail in a minute, is the millennials, because that statistic's way higher with millennials. So that's people, I guess, between sort of 25 through to 35. And that figure with them is more like 76, 80%. So there is change happening. We're already seeing, how many of you guys reuse your shopping bags at the supermarket? Yeah. Most of you. So that's been a huge shift, right? And we've all had to break that habit. Only a few short years ago, we were going to the till and we weren't even thinking about taking a reusable bag. And I don't know about you, but when the law came in, I felt guilty every time I went shopping took me about 6 weeks to make the shift. But initially it was like, oh, I feel guilty. Then I felt angry because it's like at the counter feeling guilty in front of the retailer, annoyed that the retailer is making me feel bad, which is nonsense because I need to take responsibility for my own feelings. It's not them making me feel bad. I feel bad myself about doing it. It's all about me in that moment. And actually, eventually what I realized is that, I need to get these bags. I need to then put them in my car. Then it was another week of being angry that I was forgetting them in the car. And then eventually I got them into the supermarket. And now it's just a habit. I have changed that habit. And I don't know how many of you have done anything like that, not just with plastic bags. Most of you who've put your hands up probably will have gone through something, maybe not as extreme as 6 weeks like me, but you'll have had habit changes in your life, and those habit changes take you from one state of being into another state of being, and that's what we're seeing broadly with regards to plastic bags, and I think we're going to see it more and more with other products. So, now that we've done the plastic bag change, people have gone committed all in on plastic in July. There's a thing called Plastic Free July. It started in 2011, I believe, and they've got over 3 million people signed up to commit to being plastic free for a whole month in the year. So when you make the change with plastic bags, that's one thing, but I've tried doing this. I haven't quite got to it, but I'm going to give it a go this year to be plastic free for the whole month. I've tried being plastic free. It's tricky and it needs a bit more planning. So I'm going to actually do it and write a blog about it and do a vlog about it as well, because loads of little headaches. The easy wins are like if you buy coffee every day, get a reusable coffee cup. You can actually save money doing that because most of the places will give you a discount on your coffee, 30p off, 50p off, whatever. And then also on your water bottles. So I used to buy plastic water bottles every week, six big things of plastic water because I didn't like to drink tap water. Then I got a reusable bottle. I got a filter system on my tap. And so, it's just making those shifts. And then once you've done it, you're into the habit change and you can move on. I just want to talk about another habit change that's we're seeing a rise in as well, which is veganuary. How many people tried veganuary? Anyone in the audience? No? Some? Good. Well done. It started with 3,300 people committing to doing it in 2014 it was, and now the last numbers for this January 2019, almost 250,000 people pledged to go vegan just for the month of January. A lot of it's coming off the back of documentaries like this one on the left called Cowspiracy. I don't know, how many of you guys seen that? Anyone seen it? It's on Netflix, free to watch if you get Netflix. I think it's probably available online somewhere if you don't have Netflix. It's well worth watching. It tells you, some of the issues with eating meat. I'm not here to preach to you, by the way. You all have to make your own decisions in life, but there are huge implications for CO2. And the biggest one that stuck with me from Cowspiracy was we could all sort the CO2 problem out tomorrow if we cut back on our meat consumption. In fact, if we stopped eating meat, it would dramatically change the CO2 output of the planet, because cows produce methane. That's a huge contributor to CO2, more than flights. And also there's huge numbers of forests being cut down to grow soya to feed the cows. That's just using cows as an example, but also there's a lot of water consumption used, and we have limited resources in terms of water. What I find most interesting, though, for me about this with regards to retail and with regards to us, is just that there's a huge, the trend is clear, right? It's huge. What is that, 20 million just searching on it in the globally, up to getting on towards 100 million searching about how to go vegan. And what this means is that we're making our change with our plastic bags, we're making changes with reusable coffee cups, we're making changes with what we're eating, and so that's having an impact in terms of what we buy, and also the likelihood of us making more changes further down the line. Because if you can change one habit, I don't know, if you get into running or something, you're going to find it easier to do other fitness routines. And you can see the stats, going from 2007, spending an average of 542 pounds per annum, up to getting on towards 1,200. And there's a breakdown of all the different types of areas where, on our ethical transport, renewable energy, and all the rest of it. Here's a graph which also shows you the kind of trends in the spends, environmentally friendly spends. This is from a global, a UK report that's done every year, and again I linked to it from the slides on my slide share. What I find interesting as well is this, you kind of look at that end column, which is ethical money, and you think, actually that's money, that's got no relationship to me. But of course, ethical money has to go into things that are ethical, and so that will ultimately affect industries like us, where we, if we're searching for investment and we're an ethical company, we're more likely to be able to get access to that funding. But also, that funding will necessitate companies that are ethically prone to do more work, because the money drives the growth in it ultimately. So the real change for this is Millennials, as I said earlier. And I just want to talk a little bit about them. So they have the most spending power at the moment. That's going to grow to about 4.4 trillion pounds a year globally. They are spending most of their time on mobile phones and online. So coming back to that social media stuff that we spoke about earlier, that means they can be informed on subject areas, like about products or companies. So if you're a company that's kind of tricking your way through it and not really committed, you're going to get found out pretty quick, because these guys are on it, and they're in forums, they're in WhatsApp groups, they're on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, sharing all this information. And it spreads rapidly and fast. Rapidly and fast, same thing. So they tend to research their products very well. It's not that they don't spend money. They are very much interested in health and wellness. There's actually a younger generation now coming through is drinking less. They're fitter and healthier than they were before, despite some reports saying the opposite. They have a real passion for the environment, and they also don't spend much time looking at traditional media. So, less TV, less newspapers, all that kind of thing. Tending to get the news from online and from social media. And they spend more freely, which is good news for retailers if you've got the right thing for them. And they really, really value authenticity. So I've written about authenticity on my blog for retailers. That's the #1 driver at the moment. That is a huge trend. So you can't be disingenuous when you're making these changes. If you're going to make a change to become a more environmentally friendly conscious or ethically conscious retailer, you're not going to be perfect overnight. It's like learning how to run a marathon, right? You're not going to be go from where you are now unfit to marathon ready in the space of overnight. It's going to take time. But documenting that change and how that process that you go through and being authentic about that is really important for communicating with millennials and with people at large, consumers at large. So I just want to talk about 3 businesses that that specifically I think are doing great work in the kind of ethically conscious space and also in the green space, just to give you some ideas about people who I think are being authentic. So this is Sue Morris. She has a company that used to be called Glebe Cottage Cards. She's a greeting card publisher. She's rebranded recently to be the eco-friendly card company, and she is here at Spring Fair. In fact, she's over there in the audience. She's a huge fountain of knowledge for environmentally friendly greeting cards. So she uses vegetable-based inks. All her cello bags are compostable. She prints on boards that have got no chlorine and no chemicals in them. So, and she's been doing it. The reason I feel like she's authentic is because she's been doing this before any of us even woke up to doing it. Actually, the card industry is pretty good, generally speaking. Mostly they use FSC board. FSC is Forest Stewardship Council, which basically means that all the forests are maintained and sustainable, so they don't just plant trees for trees that are chopped down, but they also are considerate of the wildlife in the forests when they do chop trees down, which is really important. So she's using all those type of things. She's also contributing heavily into the card industry to encourage other publishers. She's very generous with her time in terms of supporting. So she's spoken at the Greeting Card Association AGM this year. I videoed that speech, and it's actually on YouTube under GCA Clips. So that's really worth checking out if you do sell cards and you're interested, or you publish cards and you're interested in that. And she's definitely one to watch and learn from, because you know, she knows loads about the environmentally friendly space. So this is Windows. And Windows are a printer. So printers, ordinarily you would kind of think, oh well, gosh, how could they possibly be, you know, environmentally friendly? I mean, they're basically a manufacturer, and so. But I think coming back to that authenticity and coming back to that moving forward from where you are into a better space, I think it's all about that progression rather than like it's a bit like if you turn vegan, right? Vegans are kind of like, well, you have to be 100% vegan, and sure, if you do veganery, be 100% vegan. But if you're eating meat every night or every day, and then you decide to make more of your diet vegan, maybe 50% or maybe 20% to start with. Maybe every weekend you'll cook without meat, and then eventually that might flip over to every week you're cooking weekdays without meat and weekends you're eating meat. That's fine. It's that kind of progression, so you're moving forward. So don't get too hung up on being the perfect vegan, if you like. Think about moving towards you know, where you want to go. So Bruce, this is Bruce Podmore. He owns Windows. He's really passionate about the environment, and he's doing exactly that. So he has a variety of things that he's done in his factory, which are quite incredible, I find. He's got a furnace in his factory where they can kind of, they burn their pallets basically to create energy to heat the factory. And he's reduced his heating bill by like 85–90% just by doing this. And the pallet thing amazes me, because this gives you an idea of how much, you know, coming back to that 1% of stuff is in use 6 months later, just pallets alone, he ends up with 2 tons of nails from the pallets that he uses to burn to make energy to heat his factory. That's just the nails. Those tiny, I don't know how many nails there are on a pallet, but it can't be that many. And it amazes me the volume of pallets that he must go through. But it's great that he's kind of closing the loop off, and it's not, you know, he's putting heat back in and he's not taking it out of the grid. And he, again, vegetable links, and he's sort of, you know, he's a big contributor in the card industry to knowledge sharing, because a big part of this now is like us actually trying to figure out, okay, what can we recycle, what can't we recycle, what's going to be damaging, what chemicals are used in this, what chemicals are in that, you know, so that we can make the changes in the way we produce stuff. So the next business I want to talk about is Origami. So Origami is a card publisher based out of Italy, and Furio is the gentleman, Italian gentleman, and he's also in the audience there. I hope you guys don't mind you pointing up, but you know, you are both a great resource in terms of information about these things. So actually, so Furio set up Origami in Italy. They produced pop-up cards, which are very beautiful, and they also do some cards which use a quilling technique. They're up for a Gift of the Year award tonight on the best card and gift wrapped. So good luck to you for that. And then, so for them, a huge part so they're all FSC boards. They're all, the factory that they use in Vietnam is fair trade. It's the first fair trade certified pop-up card producer in the world. And off the back of that, they recently have done a deal with Disney, who is really keen to make some shifts into the environmental space, and so they've got some Disney licensed products this year, which is really exciting. But this is Furia and his wife Erica and their 2 boys. They went over to Vietnam to see the factory. They took this sheet as all of the customers that they sell to in Italy to involve them in this kind of in the story. Really, it's the story of everyone's involvement in a kind of in a product that's making a better world. So not only do they use a great setup over there, but also they give part of their proceeds goes to the Christina Noble Foundation, which is a children's charity. It's been going on for 30 years, and they've helped over 800,000 street kids from Vietnam and Mongolia during that time. It's an amazing charity, actually. I did a motorbike ride across the Gobi Desert last summer, and I raised money for the charity, and I went to their village in Ulaanbaatar, and it was fantastic to see the work they're doing there. So these kind of stories are becoming more and more important. It used to be like charity, any product that had a charity angle was like, just, it didn't look like a serious product, and now it's becoming really important that actually products do contribute to a better world for all of us. There are also some product categories that it's worth looking at in terms of opportunities. I should just mention as well, I forgot, sorry, it's a little plug. So Blue Eyed Sun, my business, is distributing Origami now in the UK and Ireland, and you can come and see the cards on 4A01, which is it's at the bottom of the screen there. So obviously bags, like not using single-use bags, that's become hugely important, and so bag products have been really growing. Bottles, I don't know how many of you guys stock chili bottle, anyone? Chili's bottles, so they're here, great product, really beautiful designs, been very successful. That's again single-use water, single-use plastic bottles, trying to get rid of those. Lunch boxes, this is to stop single-use sandwich waste and the packaging. So lunch boxes, we're seeing a rise in interest in those. And of course, coffee cups. So these are bamboo coffee cups. And again, shameless plug, but we sell these particular ones on 4A01 with Blue Eyed Sun. That has been, we've had a massive year on the back of those, and hugely popular, and it's so great to be selling a product that's actually making a difference in the world, and cutting back on all that single-use plastic-lined waste. So I just want to talk about some steps that you can basically take to, to make change yourself. I think it's not just with your businesses, but also personally. I would really encourage you to make a personal journey with some of these shifts. Try and reduce or refuse waste where you can. The supermarkets, it's really easy. Just don't buy the stuff in the plastic packaging. Buy the stuff that's not in the plastic packaging. In terms of food, like vegetables and what have you. If you do that and we keep saying to the supermarket managers, that we don't want that, then eventually the change will happen because it's being driven by us as the consumers. We need to reduce the amount of waste that we're bringing. So buy things that you can reuse and you can give a longer life to, like a lunchbox or a reusable coffee cup or whatever. Reuse, obviously, as well. And then lastly, recycle. So it's really important that any plastic waste that you have or any cardboard waste that you have, if you're not already recycling at home, please do it. And if not just at home, once you've... some friends of mine, in fact a retailer up in Scotland, she's got 4 shops, and I had dinner with them in Glasgow recently when I was at the show up there this month. And her daughter, so she's vegan, and her daughter's vegetarian, and her husband is a meat eater, and they have a little baby boy, just recent, he's about a year old. And he said, the father said, oh, we're going to raise him vegan. And, which is great, very admirable, but the grandmother was like, actually, you can't do that. How can you ask your son to do that when you're not doing it yourself? That's just not fair on him. And also at some point that's going to come to a head, right? He's going to be like at dinner at a restaurant, Daddy, what are you eating? And so we have to lead by example. And that's why I say we have to start with ourselves, because ultimately if we can make the changes, then from there we can go into our businesses. I mean, how many business owners in the room? That's out of interest. So yeah, a lot of you. And so as a business owner, don't walk into your business asking your team to make that change if you haven't made it yourself. And you've to make it yourself is important because you go through all the difficulties that come with making that change, and then you can support the people around you. So going vegan is an interesting one because I did veganuary this month, and I'm vegetarian, and I have been vegan in the past, but so I did veganuary, and actually one of the hassles, like I like chocolate brownies, and I like ice cream as well, and so actually, you know, making the full shift, I'm probably about 80-90% vegan, but you know, every now and then I like to have those things. And you know, making that shift, a friend of mine was like, have you tried this particular brand of ice cream? Or have you tried this particular brand of, there's a Rocky Road vegan brand in Sainsbury's, excellent, do try it. But you know, so, and then I was like, oh, those are really nice, and actually that was support from my community to actually help me along the path, you know. And it sounds like a silly issue, right? I mean, you're not killing animals and you just still want to have your brownie and your ice cream, but you know, it's those little things where we get all upset, don't we? We're like, oh, I don't want to not have my brownie, you know, or whatever it is. And whatever it'll be for you, you'll have your own versions of that. So it's really important you make transitions yourself and then help your community to do it for themselves. So I just wanted to, I'm going to wrap up, but this is just an idea of the waste issue going on right now. So this is in like the half-hour talk that I've just been doing. Global waste, 10,000 plastic straws, 57 million plastic bags, 30 million plastic bottles, 125 tons of nappies, all plastic lined, which take hundreds of years to break down, 30 lorry loads of plastics into the sea. I mean, we're not actually driving this into the sea, but we kind of are, you know, in a way. And one of the big issues as well, coming back to the vegan thing, and again, I'm not trying to preach here, but a lot of the plastic in the ocean is fishing nets, like nylon plastic fishing nets. And so they reckon for every fish that you eat, up to 5 marine animals are being killed for you to eat that one fish. And that's just something to think about, you know, going forward. You know, you might want to do less and encourage less of that. So just a couple of takeaways for you to, when you leave the talk, you know, try and build environmental awareness and sustainability and social responsibility into your business, and try and change those habits yourself, and just take some kind of action. You know, even if it's, you know, buying a reusable water bottle and just cutting back on the amount of you know, plastic that you're using. I actually, when I made the change to the water bottles myself, I still have 3 plastic water bottles I keep them on top of my fridge, and I haven't touched them for like 3 months because I'm no longer using those. And actually it's a nice reminder that I'm actually using less plastic, and so I probably switched the percentage around. The easiest way to make change in general is to use the 80-20 rule, which is like 20% of your inputs will affect 80% of your outputs. So the things that are going to have the biggest effect in your life, so with your sales and profits, for example, it can be that 20% of your customers bring in 80% of your profits. Similarly, you can use it for things with the environment. So what's producing 80% of my waste from me right now? Is it plastic bottles? Is it cardboard? What is it? And then taking action on those things and making sure you've got good recycling for the cardboard, or you're cutting back on how you do it. But that's it for me. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to take them now.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks.
Any questions from the audience?
No, good.
Thank you.
Run away.
Well, one more big round of applause, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.